Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode. Today for Fright-A-Thon we will be talking about the 5 movies that either need a Blu-ray release or are desperately in need of an upgraded Blu-ray or 4K release. Some of these do have Blu-rays and they are either prohibitively expensive or terrible or not in region A or they're unofficial bootlegs or whatever. We need an official sort of loving boutique label release basically for all 5 of these movies. Now there's plenty of other movies out there that are, lost to time or obscure or whatever that you might think. These are just my 5 that I think really need that upgrade or an actual Blu-ray release themselves. So starting off, we've got number 5. We've got Prom Night 2. This is a sequel obviously to the Jamie Lee Curtis Prom Night slasher sort of classic that set Jamie Lee on her career after Halloween. Prom Night 2 comes a little bit later. It comes in 1987, and this was actually a movie that was filmed that was not a Prom Night sequel originally, that was retrofitted with reshoots to connect to the original Prom Night. And this one is pretty different. Obviously, the first Prom Night comes in that sort of slasher area after Halloween, but Prom Night 2 comes in that later 80s more section of horror where the effects are better. The horror movies are sort of bigger and more bombastic, and of course there's more kills, more gore and everything, because by the late 80s, if you didn't have gore and you didn't have kills, what were you doing? But Prom Night 2 has a DVD release that is very expensive, that is prohibitively expensive, and if you're buying a DVD for that much, it better be a movie you really love. And so Prom Night 2, it really doesn't make sense how someone like Vinegar Syndrome or Arrow or anybody hasn't really made a release like this that's put some love and care into a new transfer and maybe some new extras or whatever. But this would be a really great one to get a new Blu-ray for that we just don't have. Number 4 is the heavy metal classic Trick or Treat from 1986. Not Trick or Treat, but Trick or Treat, if you get it confused looking up on IMDb. This one tells the story of a heavy metal singer that has died, that gets reincarnated by the powers of the devil. And this one has an absolutely fantastic killer soundtrack from Fastway. The soundtrack is more available than the movie is. You can watch Trick or Treat on streaming. Sometimes it pops up here or there, but for a DVD, it's also pretty expensive. And for the Blu-ray, there is no Blu-ray. We don't have a Blu-ray for Trick or Treat that's readily available, that isn't like a bootleg or whatever. So we really need this one. And Trick or Treat is just, it has Gene Simmons in it. It has Ozzy Osbourne in it. You have the killer soundtrack. It's just a great movie. It's just fun. It tells, it puts heavy metal and horror, the two things that go the best together here, and it puts them together in one movie, and it's just kind of mind-blowing that we haven't had a good Blu-ray release for Trick or Treat these days. But please, somebody, if you're listening out there, just do it. Just get it done. Even at this point, like getting a bare bones release of just the movie might be fine with me, but if we can get something from Scream Factory or Arrow or anybody like that for Trick or Treat, please do it. Number 3 does have a Blu-ray release, and let me find it here on the shelf, because this one is truly awful with the cover and everything, and I'm talking about Near Dark. Near Dark has a Blu-ray release. You have it right here. It's from the studio, but if you can see from the cover, that is awful. This is one of the worst Blu-ray covers I've ever seen, and if you can see all the imagery in this movie that goes on, even just having that as the cover would be fine, but because this came out around Twilight Fever, we had to make it look like it was Twilight, which this movie is not. This is a Western sort of themed vampire movie from Catherine Bigelow, and it's absolutely amazing. It's wonderful. This Blu-ray is very expensive. It's like $100 new. It's $50 used, or if you want to get the disc or whatever. This one is on streaming and it shows up. It was on the Criterion channel a while ago. It's on Shudder. We did get some sort of promise, maybe a tease of a 4K release from Studio Canal, but that never materialized into anything. We've had some fake teases here and there of a new 4K or whatever, a new Blu-ray. You can get this one on Blu-ray, but it's a bare bones release. It's got the audio commentary, a making of documentary, and then a couple deleted scenes. But this one could really use an upgrade with the transfer and everything, and of course the cover art. But get this one, make it so that it's more readily accessible. More people need to see Near Dark, because this movie is utterly fantastic, and the imagery on display is beautiful. I watched it originally on YouTube in one of those weird where they upload it where it's like the background is bigger than the actual picture to get around some sort of copyright or censorship or stuff like that. So I watched it in 480p in a tiny little box, and it was just as great. And then I watched it on Blu-ray when I got it on Blu-ray. But this one is desperately in need of a 4K or something new, because people need to see this movie. Number 2, we have one of the only Michael Mann movies that isn't available on Blu-ray. It's readily available on DVD. You can get it on DVD. It's actually not that expensive to get on DVD either. But we have The Keep. And this one is a pretty crazy one. It's earlier in Michael Mann's career. He hates this movie, so that's why it hasn't gotten, as much love as some of his other movies, like Manhunter, Miami Vice, Last of the Mohicans, stuff like that. This movie he hates. There's a couple of different cuts of the movie as well. There's a lot of stuff that got left on the cutting room floor that could be added back in. But The Keep is just a great sort of horror-ish, sci-fi almost movie where this evil entity gets released out of this tomb by the Nazis, and these two family members have to sort of help them, not help the Nazis, but they have to help defeat the evil, and that's the basic plot and premise of The Keep. But The Keep is just great. It's a Michael Mann movie. I love Michael Mann. He's one of my favorite directors besides John Carpenter and Sam Raimi. He's probably number 3. But The Keep it's surprising because Scream Factory has put out a bunch of stuff from Michael Mann. Arrow has put out a bunch of stuff from Michael Mann. So it might just be Michael Mann going, I'm not putting that movie out on Blu-ray. I hate it. But for all of us out there that are huge fans of his, no matter what he thinks of the movie, we really need a Blu-ray release that is accessible of The Keep. A Region A release, Region B, Region Free, who cares? Just give it to us, because the movie needs to be seen, and this one is great. Finally, number 1, if you know me, you know I love me some Fright Night. I do like the remake. I love the original more, but there's a sequel. There's a sequel, Fright Night Part 2, that was filmed a little bit after Fright Night 1, and it doesn't have Tom Holland as director. Tommy Lee Wallace jumps in as the director, but it has most of the original cast intact, and you get some new wrinkles in there. You have a fantastic performance with Jerry Dandridge's sister is the main vampire in this one, and this one is just sort of lost in time. I watched it originally on YouTube a couple years ago and got the HD rip onto my computer, so at least I can watch that. But there is an unofficial sort of, I think it's a Spanish Blu-ray out there, and this one is entangled in one of the worst rights sort of disputes or rights issues there is out there. If you think Friday the 13th is bad, the rights for Fright Night Part 2 are even worse, because it was financed and produced by one of the Menendez, Jose Menendez's production company, and the story is that, obviously he was murdered by his sons, and he and his wife were murdered by his sons after the fact, and so they were on the way to making a third movie here, and then he was murdered, and all the rights got messed up because of that. And so Fright Night Part 2 I don't think is ever going to get an official Blu-ray release. It's just the rights are too messed up for any company out there to do. So it might be high time to get that bootleg, but I'm holding out hope, because I know as soon as I hit click on the buy button and pay the exorbitant sort of import fee for it, I know for a fact it's going to be like, oh, Arrow Video somehow figured out the rights and has Fright Night Part 2 coming. But we have a wonderful 4K of Fright Night 1 coming, and you have a nice release of Fright Night from Eureka as well. This release is very good. It's also region free. It might not look like it, but it is. This one has plenty of special features. The new 4K is going to have some new features, and the ones on this disc. But that is it for the 5 Blu-ray horror Blu-rays that need to get made or need to get upgraded here. What do you think needs to get upgraded? What do you think needs to come out on Blu-ray that already hasn't, or that has a subpar release coming or out already? So let me know in the comments, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and do all that YouTube stuff, because it really helps me out. And make sure to look back at all the rest of the Fright-A-Thon content we've doing. We've got plenty of stuff coming up forward, and some great stuff with, series rankings, movie reviews. We've got a Halloween Ends review coming out when that comes out, Hellraiser. It's a great time to be a horror fan, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you again real soon.